Good evening. Hope everyone is having uh a good day so far. So today we're gonna give you a little good nightcap. We're gonna talk about the struggle of struggling. The struggle of struggling. And this is going to be in Hebrews chapter 12. Because as I was out eating dinner with the wife, God began to deal with how many of you have a mindset that you think God is always picking on you or God is always correcting you. And oftentimes, because we don't have many teachers that really understand the revelation or the word, we don't know sometimes that's a good thing. All right. Because you got to keep in mind how you were before you got saved and the things that we used to do or get ourselves into without even thinking about it. We just do things because it was just in our nature. But then you come to Christ and he begins to tell you and show you the difference between right and wrong. So we're going to deal with that mindset to better help you understand what you go through when you're struggling. So Hebrews chapter 12 verse 1 says, "Wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sins which does so easily besets us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us." So here Paul opens up talking about a cloud of witnesses. And some say these are the people of faith or that have gone and died before us. He's wording it as that they are watching in some kind of way. I don't know if that's true. Whatever you believe, that's what you believe. I'm not one to argue on this particular belief. But he says something key. He said, lay aside every weight and sin. So we got to know that even though he was maybe attaining to the people past, we have people that watches us, how we live our life, how we conduct ourselves as we call ourselves believers. And more so than ever, they teach sometimes the only God they ever know is the one they see through you. All right. So when it say lay aside every weight and the sin, we got to realize what it was he's trying to tell us. Because every sin is not a weight and every weight ain't a sins. But he was saying that there are some things in our DNA or in our genetic makeup, our profile, our character that shows who we really are by how we do those things. Our choices are not always between right and wrong. Some things is just automatic we do. So when we understand the word easily ensnares us, we got to understand what God Paul was trying to get us to comprehend. So when you look up the word ensnare in the Greek word, it means you're puristaton. All right. And it's have four different translations. It can mean easily avoided, admire, ensnaring, or dangerous. So what Paul was trying to tell us in Hebrews chapter 12 is that some of the sins and the weight that we got in our life, they can be avoided. So some sins can be easily avoided, but they're not easily avoided. And what I mean by that, like them 4 o'clock in the morning booty calls. You can easily avoid that booty call by blocking that number or don't answer the phone. But for many of you, you want that call. So that's a trap that easily ensnares you because that guy or that woman you deal with, they know if you call them at that time of morning, what they want. I remember I had, a woman that was connected to the ministry, and she had called me. She said, "I don't know why I get up in the morning. That man be calling me 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I just get up and leave my church and I go over there." She said, "I don't know why I keep doing it." And I laughed, but I'm looking at the honesty, which means, okay, what is it to make me run to this man when I know he don't want nothing but a piece of cooch? All right. Then he said, then we got to look at some sins are admired, yet must be laid aside. What is that? That's looking at somebody else's life and pattern their life after your life. I wish my husband treated me like this. I wish my wife treated me like that. I wish my children were like this. I wish see, that's a sin of comparison. See, all sins in our life or weight of sin is not necessarily things that can be in the touchy feely state, is what I'm saying. Some things are mental. You know, why do you cuss at your child? Why you why you tell them they ain't gonna never be nothing? You know, language. We see in the way we talk to people. You know, then you look at the sins that are snaring and that especially harmful. That's the type sin that you ain't got no business doing. So when you know you ain't got no business doing it, you sneak and do it because you ensnared by that. It can be something as simple going in people garbage train trying to see what they throw away or what they got or grabbing people mail and trying to read this and that. What kind of sin that is? That's deception. So every sin and what we got to look at, Paul was saying, I'm trying to teach you how to let this stuff go. And for a lot of us, we don't want to let certain things go because that's who we are. We think it's productive, but it actually not. It's deceitful behavior. That's why he says we got to cast them aside. He said, let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Now, that's what wrong with a lot of us as believers. We running a race, but don't know what kind of race we running. We don't know if we doing 100 yard dash, cross country, you know, jumping the hurdles. All we know is that we love God. You can't just come to Christ and say, I just love God. Because he put something in all of us that we got to run to. And if you just sitting in church, listen to message, that's my home church. That's my pastor. That's my dad, all that mess. But you never grow. You don't know where your race at. See, how you gonna be in a race just sitting on the sideline? But in sitting on the sideline, you telling everybody else how to run that race. Well, you ought to do it that way. You should do that way. You need some shoes on. Why don't you scratch before you race? If you ain't in the race, stop telling people how to run. Because anybody can be an armchair quarterback. But when you put your hand to the plow, then you understand how difficult it is. Do you think I just be want to sit around here And people call me telling me they problems, what they going through, how they doing this. No, I'm in the race. See, I can't say I'm part of the body of Christ, but nobody never puts me in the race. And for many of us, we like to tell people how to run the race, but we scared to get in the race. I don't like heights. I can't run that fast. My belly might jiggle. I don't have a sports bra. Well, shut up then. Shut up. And see, that was wrong with a lot of us. We listen to other people's advice to tell you how to run your race, how to deal with your sin, how to deal with your husband, how to deal with your wife, and they ain't got nothing. Then he goes on to verse 2. Look unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. See, you ain't shamed of sin, but you shame to tell people that you follow Christ. And for many of us, that's why I could say Christ has been very hands on with us in the past 2 years, which means every mistake we make, he right on it. Why? Because you got to despise the shame that you go through. You ought to hear some of the stuff people call and tell me they do. But they got to talk to somebody because they shame. And see, for a lot of us, we don't call people that will give us great spiritual advice. We call our day ones. We call people that half in the world and half in church. We call people that got a good gospel language, but no gospel relationship. You know how many people call me for advice? But then you know how many people are sit around saying, how dare he give advice? That's what the gospel all about. It's not about how you live your life and what you look like to others. It's who life that you can change when God brings them to you. See, when you come from the hood and all you know is whoring and selling and stealing and manipulating and just kind of get by any way you can to a place that people call and ask you something about this thing called Christ, this thing called the gospel, this thing called God. Why am I saying thing? Because he can be anything you want, and he can use anything he can to get his message to you. But see, for a lot of us, we want Christ to be represented by a bow tie, a robe, and people who know all the language, what everything mean in the Greek, the Hebrew, and they done went over here and got the doctorate. But when you call them and ask them what God doing, you either gonna get I don't know, or let me pray on it and call you back, and you'll never hear from them. See, if you get in ministry to gain a following, or you want ministry to gain a following, then you ain't in ministry for the right reason. You just want attention. See, when he talks about looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. See, God got to sometimes God will show you what you're gonna get in before you get in it. And sometimes he won't. So when it talks about despising and shame, you got to know, listen here. Do you know how shameful it was to still live of life of carnality, but telling people you called to preach? That was shame. Do you know how shameful it is to get mad and cuss at somebody, but then somebody call you, pick up the phone, and you got to talk, and you got to talk that gospel talk, but you ashamed of what you just did? You got to despise all that. Because what God trying to tell you, in spite of who you are, what you go through, I can still use you. Look at David. David killed a man just to get his wife. David was a whore. But yet the Bible depicts David as a man after God's own heart. Don't let people put you in a box that your gospel got to be perfect. Only thing you got to do is do it. You ain't got to. You ain't gonna be allowed to cross every T and dot every I sometime, because things happen suddenly. I got to finish that season of suddenly. Things gonna happen suddenly, and sometimes you ain't gonna have time to pray to God. Sometimes you might have not have time to say I'm sorry. Sometimes you might not have to change whatever you did somebody wrong. But you got to know that if you don't have time, that your relationship with God was at a point enough that He understand what you meant in your heart. See, just because people try to tell you something that's politically correct by them doesn't mean it's politically correct by God. Don't nobody know the wisdom of God. Some of the things I done, that ain't God, that ain't God, that ain't God. But the minute they found out it was God, ain't nobody came back around and said, boy, you sure was right. Take them. Y'all see me talking about them aliens bold, everybody laughing at me. That boy stupid, ain't no darn. Until your own government came out and said what they had. They done had aliens for years. But watch this. And this what puzzles me. And see, this is why you got to study all them dumb Bibles they read. If you sit around here and you go look at them Egyptians, and they got way back then, they got drawings of little men in spaceships showing they flying. Don't you know them was aliens back then? And if God said ain't nothing new on the sun, don't you know we got them now? But they really ain't aliens, they just fallen angels. But see, I had to despise the shame of talking about aliens because I know what God told me. And see, for a lot of y'all, if people don't think what you say makes sense, you don't even believe it. So you will let non-believers doubt what God telling you. I remember years ago, what's that lady name? God dog, I had to find her. I used to talk about the secret place in God. And she used to look at my page, and then she inboxed me one day. She said I was praying. And what it was, she thought she was better than me because she was in God longer than me. Well, God, what's this secret place Brother Hubbard talking about? He do this, he do. So she was, you know what I'm saying? It was a white woman, you know. But they thought they were better than me because they had no God in it. So God said, let me show you. And she inboxed me. God, dog, I can't think of her name from there. She said, God showed me what you was talking about. And he said he only showed me to shut me up. Because I thought I was better than you, and you didn't serve to see what I seen. Listen here, I don't care how long people been in ministry. I cringe at somebody talking about I've been doing this for 40 years. Maybe for 40 years you've been doing it wrong. Because the Bible teaches about that parable, and he needed workers. I don't care if you started in the morning, in the middle of the day, at night. The parable says you all get the same thing. Years in ministry don't mean you mean nothing to God that you know more than somebody else. I got people younger than me. I look at them with amazement when they say something to me because years don't mean nothing. So you got to despise the shame. And if God tell you to say something, say it. They think I'm crazy. I told them you can go out there and talk to them trees, but you got to have a relationship with God to do it. You can't talk to no darn tree. How come you can't? Didn't Christ speak to the tree and it drawed up? Did he say you can speak to a mountain and throw? So that means you can physically speak to this, but you got to have a relationship. Don't the Bible say that the earth is groaning, waiting for the sons of men? That means men in right standing with God have the ability to do that. But watch this. It takes somebody crazy to believe something like that because it don't make no sense. What the Bible teaches. The wisdom of God is foolish to men. That means they ain't gonna understand you anyway. I don't look for nobody to understand me. If I hear it, I say it. Now, in my defense, I'm like everybody else. I be trolling. Some things I say just to say it, just to see who take it and run with it. And you know what I say? I said, look at them fools. They ain't ask God, was that true or not? Okay, honey. And that's what we got to look at. Verse 3 said, for consider him that endures such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest you be weary and faint in your mind. Stop trying to prove you called. Just walk in it. Because the contradictions of sinners there. How he preaching and he drunk. How he preaching and he cussing. How he preaching they sleeping around. That's gonna be there. Okay. Why you worrying about what I'm doing? Why you ain't in ministry? Why? Because you scared. See, when you lose the mentality of what people gonna think about you, how they gonna take you, and how you perceive, then you ready for ministry. Because I just said some crazy stuff over the years. But I know what I heard. Verse 4 says, you have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And you have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chastens and scourges every son whom he receives. So when you sit around here, why God doing this to me? Why God doing this to me? What the Bible just told you. You a son. Do you know how many people out here living their life any kind of way and God ain't sending nobody to correct them? But for you, he said, despise not the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when they rebuke. So if I tell you wrong about something, you shouldn't get no attitude because God is showing his love by correcting your behavior. But what do? God always taking my money. God, I ain't gonna never have nothing. God, I can't never get nothing right. What would you do? Watch this. How would you know whether you right or wrong unless God sends somebody to correct you? So when a person correcting you and you know it's of God because you know it's your habit, then that's showing God love for you because you could be out here doing any and everything and ain't nobody saying nothing to you. That's how we was before we got saved. I used to sleep with a woman with alcohol. I didn't worry about no. I ain't worried about no STD. I ain't worried about no protection. I ain't worried about she get pregnant. You get what I'm saying? I didn't. I just in it. But now that I'm a son, you know you shouldn't do that. You better not do that. Don't be thinking that. Don't be think. But see, we think we always getting something wrong. No, you always getting it right. If you endure, God deal with you as with sons. I'd rather God to chastise me every day than not say nothing to me. But if you be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are you bastards and not sons. I'd rather, listen here, I'd rather get butt naked and let him whip me with a wet extension cord than be a bastard. Stop thinking God is on you. No, God's showing his love for you. But watch this. Just think back to when you first got saved. How many times God used to send somebody to correct you then versus now? So if he correcting you more, guess what? You closer to him more. If he correct you a little bit, then you ain't really where he wants you to be. But now, if he correcting you all the time, guess what? You closer than what you was. So now you got to look at the pattern of your life. When you was in the world, then nobody correct you. You came to church, they said something to you every now and then. But then you got around somebody, hey, God say do this. Hey, God say do that. Don't get mad. That shows you how close you is to God. You ain't always getting it wrong. No, he always trying to keep you right. All right? Watch this. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subject to the Father of spirits and live? See, I used to get I used to get beat sometimes for telling the truth because I used to lie so much. So when I did tell the truth and got a beating for it, I had to pick and choose which lie I can tell to get out the beat. But what he's saying in verse 9, okay, when our natural parents spanked us or corrected us, we feared them and okay, I ain't gonna do that. I ain't gonna do that no more. So he said, give God the same reverence and live. For they verily for a few days chasing us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we may be partakers of his whole. See that they whooped up because that's what they was taught. So it was their pleasure to discipline us. God is disciplining us for what? For our profit. What does it mean? Okay, God, if you telling me to stop going this way, you want me to go that way, you taking me that way because you got something for me. All right? You got something for me. But then we so slick, we'll do stuff and think we hiding from God. He see us still. But watch this. Now no chastening for the present seems to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldable to peace, but for fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Wherefore lift up your hands which hang down, and the feeble knees, and make straight path for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. So what it's saying, when God get on you, it don't feel good. But it's bringing forth some kind of fruit. What kind of fruit is it bringing? The fruit that you didn't know you have in it. Because see, his power, his understanding, his revelation, and his love only flows through a pure heart. So stop feeling down when God has to discipline you. Stop feeling down when God keep calling on you to do certain things. I look at it like this. He could call on anybody in the world, but he chose me. Don't that make you special? But see, a lot of us, we don't care to be special because we selfish. We don't want God to use us how he really need to use us because then we can't have no sneaky link. We can't be out all night listening to Usher. We can't be drinking and smoking them big old blunts. So you got to understand the struggle that you're struggling with. If God is in it, he's trying to correct you through it. So stop getting mad when God get on your behind about it. He just trying to build the perfect. He trying to get you as perfect as you can see yourself. Because see, he can see us perfect than what we are. But we are not going to be perfect because we are our own worst critic, as they say. So even me, even when I've been even when I've been teaching, do you know every time I get through, God says, you know you could have did better than that. And I know it in my heart I could. But sometimes I be taking the easy way out. I can release a lot more information. I can get a lot better revelation, but I got to sit down and take my time and do it the way I know the Holy Spirit in me can do it. I don't do that. So just imagine the past 5 months, if you heard something from me, ooh, that was good, that was good. Just imagine if I sit down, which I got to start doing, and really do it how God know I can do it. See, when you in God, even my imperfect teaching that's perfect to you, I know when it's within myself, it ain't even the top of what I can do because I done did it before, and through the Holy Spirit, He showed me. So just imagine the past 4 5 years, you could have got a better version of me than you get now. You could have. So how does he chastise me? When I get through, he said, boy, you know you could have did better than that. And that's what he said, boy. Because I'm still a son, because I'm not acting like a leader, which means leaders takes time. So he called me how I act. Boy, you know you could have did better than that. And he right. But watch this. It still don't stop the revelation he gets me to release because even the imperfect revelation is perfect to people who still trying to seek and find God. I just explained to you what I'm trying to teach you. That even your imperfect revelation, your imperfect self, your hangups, the God you give somebody might be the best thing they ever heard. So don't worry about what you're doing. Just do it. All right. Y'all have a good night. I'm going to bed.